We have seen plenty of video games flop throughout the course of gaming history, but every once in a while comes along a game that bombs so hard and so disastrously that it shutters an entire studio. That's what happened with Daedalic Entertainment when they shipped the awful, truly terrible The Lord of the Rings Golem, which launched so poorly and was so negatively received and sold so just abysmally that it straight up killed the development studio, and the publisher of the game decided to kill all of the internal game projects from Daedalic. And then earlier this year, following the tepid launch of Forspoken, this AAA game that Square Enix put a lot of money into, after that game bombed, Luminous Productions was shut down. Prior to Forspoken, Luminous Productions made Final Fantasy 15. And while Forspoken sales numbers I don't think have been disclosed, they haven't really shown exactly how badly this game flopped, the fact that it got Luminous Productions shut down says everything that needs to be said about Forspoken's commercial performance. And then there is Saints Row 2022, which launched back in August 23rd, 2022 to tepid critical reception, and the user score here highlights a game that plenty of people just really did not enjoy. A lot of people did not like the story, the script, the rather annoying characters, the gameplay, which felt very dated and broken in many regards. And then on Steam, you can see right here that the user score is sitting at a mixed score of 61%. And the fact that there is such a low number of review scores, only 1,127 players reviewed this game, is representative of a game that likely woefully undersold. In fact, if you look at Steam charts numbers, you can see right here that the all-time peak is only sitting at 4,147 players. That is definitely indicative of a game whose sales flopped hard and that failed to garner the interest of gamers at large. Analysts predicted that the game had to sell roughly 2 million units for the game to break even, and it's highly doubtful that this game reached anywhere close to that number, which does not bode well for a game that cost over $100 million to develop. This game cost the publisher Embracer a lot of money. While exact figures haven't been shared because they're likely too ashamed to do so, $100 million to develop this game only for it to sell as meager as the stats indicate. Yeah, that no doubt definitely shook the publisher. In fact, it was reported earlier this year that Saints Row's sales bomb changed how Embracer greenlights new projects. A stark contrast from the optimism that Embracer CEO Lars Wingefors displayed back in September of 2022, when he admitted that while he wasn't thrilled about the game's performance, he did believe that the game will eventually make money. Fast forward to 2023, and it'd be as good as confirmed that Saints Row was a sales bomb, and the game didn't turn a profit, which led to a drop in profitability for the PC and console gaming segment of Embracer, as certain games like Saints Row delivered lower than expected return on investment, leading Embracer Group to tighten its belt and be more careful in weighing which games it chooses to greenlight. Now, at the time, earlier this year, Embracer was adamant that they were not willing to close out Volition despite how badly Saints Row flopped, or to put the Saints Row franchise on ice. Well, that aged like milk in a car on a hot summer day, as Volition straight up just came out and announced that it's getting shut down on their LinkedIn page via the following statement, published just yesterday, August 31st, 2023. And here's what that statement reads like. The Volition team has proudly created world-class entertainment for fans around the globe for 30 years. We have been driven by a passion for our community and always worked to deliver joy, surprise, and delight. This past June, Embracer Group announced a restructuring program to strengthen Embracer and maintain its positions as a leader in the video game industry. As part of that program, they evaluated strategic and operational goals and made the difficult decision to close Volition effective immediately. To help our team, we are working to provide job assistance and help smooth the transition for our Volition family members. We thank our customers and fans around the globe or around the world for all the love and support over the years. You'll always be in our hearts. Volition Games. This reads like a statement that was written by Embracer and not Volition. The way this statement tries to frame all of this in a positive light for Embracer by saying things like they announced a restructuring program to strengthen Embracer and maintain its position as a leader in the video game industry, that reads like an Embracer PR statement rather than a heartfelt message from Volition Games. Volition has been around for a while, since 1993, and plenty of people who played games in the 90s essentially grew up playing Volition games. They created games like Descent, Free Space, Red Faction, and of course, Saints Row. which, despite the unfortunate release of this latest game, which was a complete disaster, people still think fondly of the Saints Row series and would have liked to see it continue in some way. People would have liked the series to make a comeback because of its unique identity as almost like a parody of Grand Theft Auto, just Grand Theft Auto taken to like a 15 on a scale from 1 to 10. A contemporary open-world sandbox game that embraces just the absurd and the ridiculous. And it's just, it'll be sorely missed. I'd be very curious to find out exactly what happened with the new Saints Row game. Was it more sort of on the publisher and leadership side of things, or was it more on Volition? Did they somehow screw up the pooch there? Like, what's the story behind why Saints Row shipped in such a disastrous state? But it's just a shame to see Volition get shut down and to see that their long tenure in this gaming industry won't continue. And it likely means that Saints Row, we're probably not going to see another entry from that game for a very long time at best. At worst, Embracer will decide to move on from Saints Row forever after just how much money they lost from the rebooted Saints Row game released in 2022, and just how poorly that game was received and just how much negative PR that drew for the publisher. Regardless, fans couldn't hide their disappointment and their sadness that Volition, a studio that has been a part of gaming for so long, is suddenly no more. It's just kind of crazy to see. I cannot say that it was necessarily unexpected, but it's a shame that Embracer couldn't foster Volition and nurture Volition to grow from their mistakes, that they could make better games going forward, instead deciding to shut them down and just, kill off a studio that has been a pretty big part of gaming history. Now, some folks like Ethan Gatchier from Kotaku made it a point to highlight that the timing of this announcement is rather interesting. The company used the Starfield embargo to try to bury the news, says Ethan Gatch. And the fact that there was no big public statement about this, instead they took to freaking LinkedIn to make this announcement, might further indicate that, this is Embracer trying to keep this as low-key as possible, but this is the internet. Like, news will eventually spread. And the fact that, again, this does read like an Embracer PR statement rather than like a heartfelt message from Volition, just all indicates to me that Embracer is really trying to take control of the narrative and the messaging. I'd be very curious to hear what Volition developers think about these circumstances rather than this PR statement that feels more like it was written by the publisher rather than by the developers. The shuttering of Volition also comes in right after they decided to put the Saints Row reboot on PlayStation Plus for September. Probably a little cash infusion from PlayStation to try to squeeze a little more money out of this project that failed so epically commercially. Ethan Gatch also made it a point to highlight just how poorly Embracer has been managing their studios because of the poor investments that they've been making. For example, he tweeted right here that Embracer has been spinning off projects and shuttering teams since a $2 billion deal with Saudi Arabia fell through. Sad to see such an old studio that's created so much and survived for so long closed over a moonshot with a human rights abuse sovereign fund that didn't land. Combined with the fact that the Saints Row reboot just lost them a whole lot of money, given the amount of budget that was allocated to it, $100 million, man. You wouldn't think that the Saints Row reboot, based on the quality that we saw from the game at launch, was worth $100 million worth of development cost. But apparently that's how it was, and that game probably did not even break even. It probably lost the company a lot of money. There were two options: either allow Volition to keep making games in the hopes that their next title can be a big hit and that they can learn from their mistakes, or, deeming Volition to be a lost cause and trying to find ways to cut costs. And cutting costs seems to be the priority for Embracer after the failed deal with Saudi Arabia, after they invested way too much money on a project that just really did not pan out well at all. I'm really starting to question Embracer's leadership and their ability to be a good games publisher. I mean, they recently acquired a bunch of like Square Enix franchises, among them being Legacy of Kain, which is from Crystal Dynamics, who was once a part of Square Enix before that studio was sold off to Embracer at a rather cheap price. It feels like Embracer has not been making particularly good decisions or particularly good investments, or just not been supporting teams enough. And the fact that they launched Saints Row the way it did highlights a publisher that doesn't seem to be too concerned with meeting high quality standards and allowing games to be delayed if need be to ensure that they release at a high quality enough state that it has a chance to succeed. And so them helming a franchise like Legacy of Kain that is so beloved, I'm no longer as optimistic about the prospect of Embracer bringing that back. I suppose only time will tell what the future holds for Embracer and its future projects and the IPs under its umbrella. But yeah, I mean, Embracer should have known better than to release Saints Row in the state that it was launched in. Or at the very least, that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the shuttering of Volition and likely the icing of the Saints Row franchise, at least for the foreseeable future. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.